Welcome everyone. Today, Fauzan and I we're gonna talk about the one of the famous economists, Friedman. So first, I'm gonna have a short introduction about the Friedman, and then I'm gonna talk about his views, and then Fauzan will talk about the ideas development of the Friedman and how does the theory have influence on the contemporary theory. So Friedman mainly have two contributions. The first one is the consumption analysis and the monetary theory. Uh, he argued that the permanent income hypothesis in consumption analysis, and also he has some findings, which includes the demand for money and modern quantity theory of money, and the effectiveness of fiscal policy of Keynes, and the long-run vertical Phillips curve. So according to Friedman, he believes that the fiscal policy actually is inefficient and the consumption and investment only reacts to changes in permanent income. And the instability of economy is low because of the constant consumption due to the permanent income. He also opposed to Keynes' ideas, who believes that the fiscal policy actually is needed for stabilizing economy and consumption investment would be affected by the contemporary income shocks. And also, he argued that the demand for money is stable in the short run. For instance, if the money supply increases based on the money market curve, the interest rate will decrease. So the demand for goods will increase. People will try to consume more and saving less. Then the price of goods will increase, as well as the demand for money increase. In the end, the interest rate will back to a normal level in the equilibrium, and also the demand for money will back to a normal level. So that's so-called modern quantity theory of money. So the old quantity theory of money argues that the velocity of money is constant. However, in the modern quantity theory of money, it says that the demand for money is stable in the short run, and increasing the money supply will only lead to inflation. And Friedman also finds that the long run Phillips curve is vertical. So the Phillips curve illustrates the relationship between the inflation rate and unemployment rate. As you can see in the graph, the short run Phillips curve is downward sloping, meaning that the government actually can decrease the unemployment rate by increasing the inflation. However, in the long run, there will be no any effect because if the inflation rate increases, then the workers will try to find a higher wage payout jobs. Therefore, the employers will try to hire less workers. So in the long run, the unemployment rate would be the natural unemployment rate. That's the reason why the Phillips curve in the long run is vertical based on Friedman. And he also suggests that the money supply has to be increased annually with a constant rate corresponds to a long-term growth rate of capacity in order to prevent the risk of inflation and recession. He also suggests that the central bank needs to stop the other monetary policy because that will only lead to uncertainty and limits the functioning of economy.
So Friedman's idea developed firstly, originally, at the times of New Classicism, or used to known as Chicago School. Just several years later, after the Keynesian economics school of thought taken place, the Chicago School itself mainly accepts the idea that government intervention should be limited, especially in terms of fiscal policy, when talking about financial crisis, economic crisis. This also has a characteristic of libertarian, which also means the maximizing of autonomy and political, also economic freedom. Now, one interesting part is that Friedman's and Keynesian school of thought have the same predecessor, which is marginalism and neoclassicism. However, Friedman is friendly towards its predecessor, while Keynesian is against. And also, since Friedman's theory is published or announced just several years after Keynesian, Friedman's theory was the most influential critic of Keynes. Now, Friedman highlight that to counteract the cyclical effect in consumption, monetary policy in terms of rule or rule-based monetary policy should be implemented. This would indicate that fiscal policy is not to be used, or at least it's ineffective to combat the problem. Also, rule-based monetary policy is to be used rather than discretionary. And we will discuss that later on the next page. Now, the impact of Friedman's view until today, one of them is that during the last quarter of 20th century, his recommendation have had a strong influence on policymaker, especially when times of crisis. Now, the difference between Keynes and Friedman's view on monetary and fiscal policy, you can read it by yourself. But one thing that I would like to highlight is that they have like similar sorts of idea, but they have different views and interpretation on it based on their empirical findings. So the Keynesian view, the government needs to intervene when times of crisis, such as, I would like to take an example, when the Great Depression hit, to manipulate demand and to recover economic growth. And this would illustrate the Keynesian views that fiscal policy is important. Even it's more important than monetary policy. While on the other hand, Friedman's view, the Great Depression became even worse because the government, or in this case, the Fed, the Central Bank of America, was not enacting monetary policies. And this would also illustrate the importance of monetary policy compared to fiscal policy. So in simple words, Keynes suggests fiscal policy is more important, while Friedman suggests monetary policies is more important. Now, the influence from Friedman has two two kind of effects, the positive one and the negative one. The positive one of the example is rule-based monetary policy, and I would like to take an example. According to Central Bank of Indonesia, during post-COVID-19 economic recession, inflation measured by CPI, or Consumer Price Index, in Indonesia is falling faster than expected, where at the end of 2022, it stood at 5.51%, while it was estimated to be 6.5. So there's like a slight difference between the actual data and the estimation. And this is a good thing. Now, one of the factors that this condition can happen is because Bank Indonesia implement a rule-based monetary policy of inflation target corridor, which is at 3% plus minus 1%. Now, with this set of rules, Bank Indonesia can react and respond appropriately and fastly, whether to pursue expansionary or contractionary monetary policy, because they have like set of rules that is made beforehand, before the crisis happened. Now, though Friedman's view on monetary policy has a positive impact and effect on economic literature and economic implementation, his view on other fields, like for example, his view on business ethics, is responded negatively, or he has criticism. He stated that an entity or a company is not obligated to any social responsibilities unless the shareholders decide to such an effect. Now, this would reflect that his view is ignorant and defective legally, morally, and socially, because it is seen as individualistic and ignorant on the responsibilities of an entity to its surrounding. Now, I think that's it from Friedman. And here's a little quote from Milton Friedman himself. The family income was small and highly uncertain. Financial crisis was a constant companion. Yet, there was always enough to eat and the family atmosphere was warm and supportive.